Welcome to the Real Healing Institute. My name is Michelle Sinclair. So we are going to be talking about consciousness forms today, why they matter. And truly, consciousness is the only thing that matters. It is why you have the life that you have. And the beliefs that you have that are housed within your consciousness are the reason why you experience life in the way that you do. So if you are met with, let's say, constant disappointments in certain areas of your life and constant successes in other areas of your life, if you were to examine your consciousness, you could see that the underpinning result is because of some beliefs that you have there of like, oh, these things just never work out for me. This doesn't ever happen for me this way. Oh yeah, I'm really successful in this way. These things always pan out this way. Let me give you guys an example. So when I was a little kid, just younger, I would always be really good at games, card games, right? And I was considered lucky. And everyone who would play with me, they'd be like, oh, you're just so lucky. So what happened was I developed this belief that, man, I just always win. I just always win. Things always pan out for me. And they always, happen to be this way for me. And because I believed that so much so, and especially because I was a little kid, so you're told these things, when you're little, and it really implants in your mind, I believed that. And so it still plays out that way today. So if I'm playing, people, for example, last night we're sitting there playing poker, and I'm raking it in. They call me the government because I'm taking everybody's money. And I was trying to determine exactly how this is happening so that I could, gift people the same thing that it is that I'm doing. So I was really tuning into my energy, and I was noticing that there was just this subtle but yet really powerful, strong feeling of just knowing, like, of course I'm going to take everybody's money. Of course, it always ends up this way. And because I had that belief, which is like, first of all, it's a really powerful thing that I'm emanating from myself, that I'm just, projecting out there. I don't need to speak it. I'm not, saying this out loud, but it's an energy that I am embodying and that I'm feeling and that I'm sending out. So when I'm playing something and somebody's like, oh, I got you, I'm going to win this one, I got this feeling of knowing like, no, you're not. And so that is the thing that wins, not because I'm special, but because I truly, truly believe it. And so then that is what plays out. So I tell you that to tell you this: if there's an area of your life that you're not happy with, it's because there's some emanation that you have from you that is going out from you and imprinting and programming all of the space that is all around you with the belief that you hold within you. And therefore it programs it, it turns visible, and it presents it to you, and it goes, here's that thing that you believe. And you're like, oh, of course, the same thing. And that always happens. And you think that this is just some pattern that is happening, but that pattern that you're recognizing, that you're seeing, has only come because of your belief within it. And so you might say, well, no, that's not always the case. Sometimes I believe that this is going to happen, and then it doesn't. Well, I gotta tell you, unless the thing that you're believing in right now has been a thing that you've been believing in for quite some time, it doesn't matter. You can't just change your mind right now in this. I mean, you can, but you can't just change your mind right now in this very second and be like, okay, well, I believe that I'm going to win this round of whatever. Meanwhile, previously, you've been implanting these beliefs for such a long time that says that that's not going to be the result, and then expect that the thing that you believe now is going to be the result, because I bet that you don't actually believe that thing that you say that you believe now, right? So people will jump on these things. They'll be like, oh, I'm going to watch this, mantra video or this how to manifest video. And then they'll do it for like a day. And they'll be like, well, it didn't work for me, so it doesn't work. And I was like, dude, man, you got to have your life based around this. This has to be like every action, everything that you do in your life needs to be centered around these things. And the most important thing is getting rid. It is not implanting new things of, oh, now I believe this, now I believe that. It's getting rid of those old things that weren't having you believe that really positive, beneficial thing in the first place. So lots of people, when they come to me, if they're coming for a session, right, let's say that they're presenting with something like a depression or anxiety. Why do they believe that? Oh, well, they believe, that they're depressed because their life is playing out this way that it is right now, or whatever it's happening, whatever's going on in their life. They typically have some idea of why they might be depressed. Sometimes people don't have any clue. I don't know. I've always been this way. I don't know why I feel this way. But what we do is we go back and we find the beginning. We find where you planted that seed first. So let's say that you got a feeling of depression or anxiety or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to have you bring up that feeling. Where are you feeling it physically in your body? You're going to be holding it in several different places. We're going to follow that back. And we're going to see the moment that you planted the seed. And I'm not saying that you did anything, but there was a situation, there was a scenario, there was something that happened, and then you believed something because of what happened. So let's say that you're at school, you're in grade 4, and some kids are bullying you. And now previous to this, you were happy, you were fine, you didn't really care, but now these kids have bullied you, and it's made you feel really bad. And so they're doing this. Now you feel like you don't belong. You feel like you're rejected. Maybe you had a friend and they did this in front of your friend, and now your friend doesn't want to get involved, and so your friend has now ditched you too, and so you've got a fear of abandonment. And in some roundabout way, you believe, for whatever reason, subconsciously, even though you might not have known this at the time, but that for some reason you deserved it. Because you're different, maybe you think you're a little weird, maybe you think you don't fit in, maybe who knows what it was that, was said to you. But because of that one incident, you now believe all kinds of things about yourself that are not true. But because you believe that they're the truth, they've now played out in your life, and you've probably had a repeat of those. So let's say that this happened, grade 4, you're getting bullied. Well, it probably happened then again in high school. And then it probably maybe happened again in the workplace. And then you're seeing maybe in relationships, maybe you were, how they treated you then. Maybe you got into a relationship and then your partner started treating you in this way. These patterns will present, but the only reason that they're present, that they're presenting to you, is because you believe something inside of you. You have sent out an energetic belief, an energetic wave, vibration, frequency that has now returned that thing that you either feared, that you dreaded, that you hoped for, that you wished for, that you truly believed in. It has returned it back to you because you have sent it out with a strong emotional imprint. Even though you didn't intentionally sit there and be like, oh, I'm going to have this strong emotional imprint, I'm going to send it out. You didn't intentionally do that, but just by you being a human, by being a person and being who you are, this happened because you had a reaction to something, and now you have this belief. And so let's say that this happened, the bullying thing, grade 4. Well, what happened now? I bet that next day you were afraid it was going to happen again, right? And so what did you do? Okay, well, first of all, now you need to blend in. Now you maybe need to be more quiet. Maybe you need to not stand out so much. You definitely aren't going to go around those people that were bullying you before. You're going to start avoiding certain people, but you're going to do this because you're afraid and because you think that it's going to happen again. And maybe it did happen again. But what happens is you did this not from a good place, but from a place of fear. Now, this is not your fault. This is survival. This is how it goes. This is life. These are the things. These are the lessons that we have to overcome. And when we overcome them, then they stop presenting. But if something like that has happened in your life and you are still experiencing similar things, which, right, if I'm talking about something totally different than your experience, you've already related this to some other area of your life that you have seen repetitions go on. I'm telling you, the reason that it is there is because of the way that you believe. And that's the only reason that it's there. And this is because your consciousness is the creator of all the things, of everything, of absolutely every experience that you have. So let's say that you've now healed this. Okay, now you're not experiencing, people treating you a certain way anymore, and you're now expecting people to treat you good. You're like, no, when I work for people, they respect me, they treat me good, they want me to be there, they think that I'm enjoyable to be around, and you've shifted your beliefs and you've healed that. Well, now that's what you're going to see play out in your life. People aren't going to reject you anymore. You're not going to experience these things. But until you have healed that part and that belief that you have there, you're going to continue to experience those things. And you think, but why does this happen? How do we heal this? We heal it on a subconscious level. I don't know any other way to do it. This is why this is how I speak about this, is that we have to heal this on a subconscious level. So how do we get to the subconscious mind? It's not what you're listening to me with right now. This is your conscious mind. So your subconscious mind is theta state. So your brain waves are cycling a little bit slower. So you need to take yourself into theta state. So you would do this through meditation, through hypnotherapy. I don't really know any other ways other than get your brain into theta state. So this happens a couple minutes before you fall asleep. So then you would take this theta and you would take the feeling that you have that is presented of, oh, I'm rejected, oh, things don't happen for me, whatever that feeling is. It's going to be an uncomfortable, sucky feeling, but we're going to take that uncomfortable, sucky feeling and we're going to follow it back to when you planted the seed. Now I say you because it was you, and only you can plant the seed in your own consciousness. Other people can try to plant things in us, but we either accept it or we don't. But when we're so little and something's been put on us, we just accept it because we're not thoughtful about our lives at that time, typically, to even know that we could talk ourselves out of this, or that when somebody's mean to us, it's really about them and it has nothing to do with us. We just don't know these things at that point. So these first few years of our life that we go through when all of these things get implanted, they then stay with us for the duration of our life, and we feel certain ways and we act certain ways and we don't know why. And it's all because of that. So I've had people who come, so let's say I had a woman. She was almost in her 70s, and she comes to me because she feels like she's unlovable. And she's like, I don't know, I've just kind of always had this feeling. And it's like, okay, weird, tell me about that. And so in this person's family, first of all, they were the favorite child. It's like, okay, well, that's weird. So you believe you're unlovable, but yet out of, all of the children that were there in the family, and there was a whole bunch, you believed that you were the favorite, and you were even told this. Okay, that's weird. Okay, well, how else is this played out in your life? And it's like, they're just kind of giving random examples. I don't remember any of them, but none of it added up or made any sense as to why you would feel that way. I have a similar situation where I just used to feel this really weird way when I would get on the phone with my mom. I would start physically feeling weird. I would just start feeling weird, and I'm like, where is this coming from? Anyways, I regress that back, and it goes back to a past life, and it's like totally random, totally weird. How could I have discovered that any other way than through subconscious healing? You honestly couldn't. I don't know. Maybe somebody telling you something one day and it's sparking things for you, but even then, when you experience and see these things for yourself in your subconscious mind, this is when things change. So this woman, feeling completely unlovable. So I regress her back, and she goes back to being an infant and has a sibling standing over her speaking negative things over this little baby that she is at the time, making her believe, and she didn't even know what the words were. She just could feel the energy, feel the vibe, and knew like, oh, this person clearly doesn't love me. Maybe I'm not supposed to be here. So infancy. And this woman's like nearly 70. So in infancy, something is spoken over her because she has no way to defend herself. All she's doing at this point, because she's so little, she's not even understanding language. She's just reading energy, and she takes this in, and it contaminates her consciousness, and she begins to believe a certain way about herself. Now, because she believes this certain thing about herself, it has now played out in her whole entire life. So she has circumstances where that prove to her over and over, I guess I'm not lovable. Married this guy, well, okay, I guess I'm not lovable. Okay, well, this happened. Okay, well, I guess I'm not lovable. And she's been proving to herself this belief that she's held within her whole life, until she came to work with me. And then just upon seeing it, and it's like, what? That's why I believed that? Oh, okay. Well, what do? Then we work with that inner child, and we do actual healing. And so then she leaves the session. Well, now she doesn't feel that way anymore. And now she feels how she feels. And that old feeling is gone. And because things, when they shift, you completely forget what that old way was like. She's now living in her life and doesn't even remember that the first nearly freaking 70 years of her life, she was wandering around believing that she was completely unlovable, because it's changed just that fast. So what is in your consciousness it's the be all and end all. It's the most important thing, because she goes through her life, nearly 70 years, feeling this certain way and not knowing why, which, this is why we ask why all the time, right? Because when we don't know, it makes us crazy. We're like, yes, but why is this happening? I need an answer. And so as soon as the mind sees the answer of this is why, okay, well, the mind is now satisfied. It has received the answer that it was looking for, and totally cool. Now, she's totally cool. She doesn't feel that way anymore. She has an explanation, and she changed. She feels different. And so what happens if you were to believe that you were unlovable? First of all, if you actually believe that, you're not going to love yourself, right? Because for some reason, you're valuing other people's assessment of you, which is meaning that you're undervaluing your own assessment of you, and that you're allowing their assessment to determine your assessment. So there's number one. Second of all, if you don't believe that you're lovable, how many opportunities, how many wonderful things have you pushed away that were meant for you because you just, maybe believed that you weren't deserving or that you weren't worthy of them? So these little tiny things that we think aren't a big deal, or we think, maybe other people feel this way, or we've got some strange thing. We don't understand the huge role that they actually determine our entire life, that our whole life that we're witnessing in front of us is based on, how we feel. Let me give you another example here. So let's say that you're little and your parents talked about money or something in some way that told you like, oh man, it's really hard to make money. Man, you've only got so much time, and in that amount of time, you can only make this. Or that they said something to you and they implanted all of these seeds that limited you, and they didn't necessarily intentionally do this on purpose. I bet that they didn't. But they were telling you their life experience. And because they're your parents and you listen to everything that they say, you then took that in as a belief. Okay, so it takes a lot of this. Okay, so I understand. And you weren't necessarily thinking about it at the time. You weren't analyzing it and breaking it down, but they spoke to you and it just went in, and then it's in there. And then all of a sudden you find yourself, the only way that you make money is when you're working 9 to 5, or when you're doing something for some other people and you only have so many hours. And so these many hours equal this amount of money. And then you based your life off of what your parents told you. And because it's come true, you've never even questioned it. You've never questioned, did I limit myself? Is there more that I could do with this? Because you just took something in and believed it and didn't question it. And so then it played out in your life. And because it's playing out in your life and you believe that that's the way that it's going to be, you don't question it. And so it just plays out, and that's how it is. And we do this in so many areas of our life, and we don't even know that we're doing it. So I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, I thought I was like super open-minded about things, but then somebody said something to me and I realized like, wow, maybe I'm believing things that aren't actually the truth. And wow, I've discovered something else where I've limited myself and I didn't know that I was doing it. Have you ever done this before? I know for myself, when I first of all became spiritually unlimited, I guess I would say. Previous to that, I had been raised in a Christian household. We would go to church friggin' twice on Sundays, and it's like, dude, like, who wants to do that? So we would go and we would drive to the city an hour, go to church for, in the morning, and then we would stay the whole day in the city, and then we would go to church again in the evening. Yeah, sounds super fun as a little kid, right? No, not at all. But all the things that they taught us in there, I didn't question it. I just believed it, right? Oh, this is how it is. Oh, that's how it is. Okay, cool. And so I believed these things. I remember being a little kid, and I was always very spiritual. I could always, I would hear things, I would see things, I was in tune. I was definitely not completely here on the earth. I was still, somewhat in the spirit world. So when, I'm at church, even though like, I felt like I was wasting my day, I'd rather be playing or doing something else than that. I still loved the spiritual aspect of it. I loved the things that they would talk about that were mystical and spiritual, and it was just so exciting. And then, they had told me things like, well, if you pray for something, it happens. And so I really believed in this. So I would pray for things and it would happen. So there was many, many beneficial things that I got from being in that world. However, I understand and I believe them completely differently now than I did when I was little. But this didn't come until much later. So then I had this friend, and she would question me all the time. She would have the Jehovah's Witnesses coming to her house. And so she'd be like, hey, they came over today and they told me this. What do you think about this? And I'd be like, okay, well, I think this. And I would give her my response. And then she would say, okay, well, where's that in the Bible? And I'd be like, okay, I got to find it in the Bible, Google, flip through, like, where's it? And I would realize it's not in there. And then I realized after several months of this going on, I was like, dude, like, do you know how many things that I've been believing in that I just believe in because somebody told me? It's not even in the Bible that, at that time was my book, my go-to. It was just crazy that I had been believing all of these things just because somebody told it to me. It's the same as going to school. All the theories that they teach you. So you're just teaching me somebody else's opinion, and I'm supposed to take this as a fact for some reason, and then I'm supposed to base my life and the things around on somebody else's theory, on their opinion. And it became so crazy to me that I had been living my entire life believing and thinking other things that people had thought or said or told me. I realized most of the beliefs that I had not come from the book, but they had come from the churches that I had been at, and the pastor's opinion, and this dude, and whoever. And I'm like, so I'm listening to all these unenlightened people, and they're telling me what I'm supposed to think and what I'm supposed to believe. And I was doing that for the first 30 some years of my life, which to me is like, what? Crazy, because I'm not one for somebody to be able to tell me what to do. But yet, that's exactly what had been happening the first 30 years of my life, and I didn't even realize that that was the case. I wasn't being thoughtful about my life, and I just didn't even understand that this was what was going down. And so when I realized this, well, first of all, I completely had to do a session for myself. A friend did it for me, to get rid of the religious fears that I had, because I knew all kinds of things, and seen and had witnessed, and divine had told me things, and I just knew all of these things. But yet within me still was this fear that, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? I'm going to hell. This is what the Christian church tells you, right? If you don't believe this, this, and this, you're going to go to hell. And so there was still that fear that was in me, even though consciously I knew that's not the case. I'm not going to go to hell. I know that I'm right. I know I've witnessed, I've seen, I've been told, all the things I knew, but yet I still had this feeling of, but what if I'm wrong? So then I go in and I do a session and I follow this, but what if I'm wrong feeling, and healed it. And angels were involved in this session. There was all kinds of things that came in it, but it was an amazing thing. And what happened was it released me from these things that I had been believing that I didn't even know that I had been believing and really truly putting my faith in. And then those things, had been playing out in my life. And so what happens when you change the beliefs that you have? Well, then your life actually changes. And so I started saying things like, we live in heaven. Miraculous things happen all the time. Opportunities are always coming to me. And the things that I started speaking about and then I started saying then began happening in my life, all because I had cleared out all of this, these blockages and this pushing away that I didn't even know that I was doing. Because I was rejecting certain things that were coming into me because I had been programmed with beliefs that weren't that. I remember when I first started reading the Christ letters, one thing that really stood out to me was, saying that, Christ had come to give an entirely new message, and he came specifically to give it to the Jewish people who rejected him. So he came with a message, and the very people that he came to give that message to were like, no, buddy, that ain't the thing. We don't believe you. And they rejected the dude. And so, how disheartening is that when you have this huge, amazing message that needs to be shared with the whole entire world, and the people that you're sharing it with are like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Pretty disheartening, pretty hard to get through. And so what happened, well, then he's going to preach to the people that are going to accept his message. So he had to change things up, right? He came with this plan of, I'm going to set these people free. And then I was like, okay, well, I guess they don't want that, so I'm going to help set these people free. And so he had to go to the place where people actually wanted to hear what he had to say. And the other day I was looking up, who should we not help? Or the people that we shouldn't help, because my heart is like, no, we need to help every single person. But there's very clear things about people that we should not help. And Jesus did it too, man. When people would question him and be like, okay, magic man, perform your magic for me. He rejected them. He was like, no, that's not how it works. This is about faith. And if you don't have it, you're not going to get to experience the things that I've experienced. You don't just get this. You don't just get to ask for it. You truly have to earn it by getting rid of everything that's in you that would be blocking that from being able to happen to you. When he would go to heal people, if people were, disbelieving, or they didn't think that he could heal them, then he couldn't. They wouldn't. But it wasn't that he couldn't do it. It was that they couldn't accept it. They were rejecting it because there was things that were in them that were not accepting the truth, because they had already accepted something that was not the truth. And they were running and believing and dictating their life based on that. Hence why they were sick. Hence why they were unhappy. All of the things that he was trying to help them with, but because they so tightly clung to their beliefs in this avenging God, or in this or in that, or whatever it was that they were believing in, they couldn't accept this new truth. They couldn't accept the actual truth because they were so full of falseness that there was no room for the truth to reside within them. So they had to get rid of all of the things, and lots of people didn't want to do that. They were comfortably uncomfortable, and they didn't want to have to change anything because it would mean that they had to look inside and that they could not blame the outside world or God on their present circumstances, but that they had to claim it for themselves of, oh, I guess why, I'm stuck in this horrible situation is because of me. Well, no, their previous beliefs were like, well, no, it's because of this avenging God. And that felt a whole lot more comfortable to them. So then they just clung to that, even though it wasn't the truth. So sometimes we believe things, we hold things in our consciousness that are so damaging to us, but we don't even know that they're present there until we follow them back. So if you have some area of your life that you're like, man, I am completely satisfied with this area, I want you to focus on it. And I want you to think about, how am I so satisfied with that? What is it that I believe about it? What is it that I expect to happen in there? And just really tune into that feeling. And I want you to notice how your body feels, right? So when I'm playing cards and I'm like, of course I'm going to win, I got this feeling, this certain feeling inside of me, and that feeling is making my results be the way that they are. So tune into that area that is so successful, and I want you to feel what it is that you're putting out. Really tune into it. Just become so aware of it. Then you're going to tune into that area that does not feel that way and just check it out. And I want you to see how it feels, what's physically there in your body. And what is it that you need to get rid of, that you need to stop believing, and that you need to stop thinking, so that you can get rid of that energy that's inside of you, so that you can pull in that energy that's successful in that other area that feels that certain way, so that you can pull that into that area of your life too, because then the successes that you're having there, you're also going to have in that other area. But until you know what it is, as long as you remain unaware of what it is that you're believing that is causing that to happen in the first place, it's just going to continue to happen. Everything is about awareness, right? And so as soon as we become aware of, what? I didn't even know that I thought that. Well, as soon as we know, then we can get rid of it. And then we don't need it anymore. And now we have freed up this energy. So now we can pull this energy here into that same space where that other stuff was before. And we're going to feel light. We're going to feel completely different. We're going to feel better. And through that, we are going to magnetize other people who are on that same vibe, that same frequency into our life and different experiences, because we're now vibrating completely differently. Whereas we were vibrating down here before, now we're up here. So all the people who used to vibrate down here, well, they used to come in your life here. Well, now you're up here. Now you're going to have different people that are going to come in, and these different people are going to have different opportunities. They're going to speak different. They're going to think different, and they're going to help to keep you there, first of all, and to elevate you. But as long as you move up here but remain with people that are down here, this is what's going to start to happen, and it's going to take you back down. So we need to let go of the things that aren't serving us so that we can make room for the things that are, and that you can have a nice, clean consciousness, one that is elevated, one that is in alignment with the truth, meaning your consciousness is just emitting love all the time, expecting the best and most wonderful things to happen that are perfectly in alignment with what the divine wants for you, and expecting nothing other than that to come in and to flow to you. Anyways, this is what I have for you guys. I'm going to be going on a road trip here. I just got back from Canada, saw my grandbaby. That was so wonderful. So anyways, the videos might be a little sparse over the next several weeks. But I love you all. I'm still offering private sessions. I do this through Zoom all the time. You can check that out down on my website below. And take care. I will see you guys in the next one.